everyone, I'm Kim Shively.
I'm Kevin Otis.
We're the authors of Applied Meisner for the 21st Century Actor, and we are talking today about action. This video is a placeholder, just holding space for when we're finally able to be back into the acting studio with actors and able to offer those real-time examples of the exercises that you're reading about in the book. But in the meantime, we want to talk about the principles and the foundational tools. One of those today, we're talking about what we refer to as the three-legged stool of Meisner acting, or applied Meisner really, and it's need, action, and point of view. So today we're going to talk about action. And Kevin, let's just give a brief summary of what action is.
Yeah, so action, it's sometimes known as a tactic or a doing. But ultimately what it is it's a verb that you can do to another person. And they are super useful to actors. It might be, well, it's definitely like one of the most important tools in acting. That's why it's part of our three-legged stool. But the action, the way that you are going about what you are doing to the other person to get your needs met, is specific and can change the behavior of the other person.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying about specific, because what we're talking about are playable actions. It's something you can absolutely do. So again, we're reality of doing. We're going to talk about that doing, but the action is something that you can do, and the action grows out of. When we talk about actions, we're really talking about the action that's being played in a scene or something that's scripted. So it's more of what happens when we do start the analysis part of the process in our technique, but action grows out of the impulse. And so with action, what we hope is happening is that you have really got an important other person in the scene. You've got a very clear reality of doing what you are doing, and you've got that need of what you need from the other person. And then the action is really how you shape those impulses during rehearsal after you are experiencing the pinch and ouch of the scene. So that action becomes something that you are able to really set a shape of a scene in a way that you can replicate it for stage management, for cameras and keeping continuity when the camera has to shift angles, but also relying on those impulses to keep the performance fresh and new every single time.
Yeah, so I love what you're saying, Kim, about the action being very specific and something that follows the path of impulse. And the other thing I'd add there is that how the action is played depends so much on the other character, on the other person, right? So if your action was to say flatter, the way that you flatter one person is different than the way you'd flatter someone else, right? The way you'd flatter a 8-year-old boy is different than the way you would flatter like a 68-year-old woman. So the how of the action is very dependent on the moment. Also, the way you'd flatter somebody who is overjoyed is different than the way you'd flatter somebody who seems upset, right? So the action is, the actor can choose the verb, but the how that action, the how the verb is played is always dependent on what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, and that moment-to-moment reality that Meisner talks about in his book, that we spend so much time talking to our students about, it's following that this moment happens, and that moment precipitates a response, and that response is the impulse. It's the impulse it's the way that the scene moves forward. It's a way that we are moving toward achieving that need, getting that need met. But the action is what gets us there. I often say the action is the fuel in the engine of the car of acting. It's the thing that really can drive that scene forward. So yeah, and also if you ever get the note that that it seems like you're playing the same thing, or it seems like you're making really general choices, oftentimes that can be a symptom of not really knowing what you're doing to the other person, not knowing what you need from them, and then not measuring, are you winning or are you losing? Because I mean, I have a 6-year-old right now, and that 6-year-old asks incessantly for the same thing over and over again. And when finally they absorb that no, there is a tactical shift. They ask in a different way. And that's what we do in life. If we don't continue to persist in the same action over and over again, if we're not getting the outcome that we want, if it's really important, we have to change our tactic. And that's where the action comes in, because that impulse tells us, oh, if this isn't working, I've got to do something different. And then we begin to have that shift. So that's where, if you're in a scene, it's not working well, you can go back and look at the actions you're playing. Are they the same action with just a little bit of a different name? Or are you trying one thing and then playing the exact opposite of it? Because maybe that'll work. That's a way to break yourself out of getting stuck in the generality.
Yeah. Life is very detailed and very specific. And so if you're acting and you find yourself like stuck in kind of a sea of sameness, then there's a disconnect there, right? And like Kim said, it's like action is where you can start deliberately finding a variety of things to do that it's going to move your character towards getting their need met.
We hope you've enjoyed this conversation about action today. For more information, you can follow us on at Facebook at 21CActor and on Instagram at 21CActor Insta, or you can visit our website at www.21cactor.com. And until then, Kevin,
Do it for real.
do it for real. Thanks, everyone.